Okay, now I wanted to show you what it was going to look like before it begins to seize. That's important that you see the difference. So it's still pretty liquidy, but it's definitely at a light trace at this point. And I have been doing this probably for about 5 minutes. So I haven't been gone from you for that long. But you can even hear that it's getting thicker. You can see it too. It's not as watery as it was. And it's going to seize pretty quickly. Now I could just sit here and it's pretty well mixed at this point, and I could just leave it alone and it'll go into that little seize mode where it ends up looking like a whole pudding. Is the only way I know to describe it. It's the best way to describe it, I guess. So I'm going to quit. If I can just see one trace line, then I'll stop. Yep, I can see it. So I'm going to stop at this point blending it. Now it's going to go to trace very quickly within just I'd say maybe a minute or two. Doesn't take long. So I'm going to go. I put away all my dangerous light stuff, so I'm going to take my gloves off, take off my goggles, get a little more comfortable, and then I'm going to clean this off, and I'll be right back. And by the time I get back doing all that, I'm sure it'll be seized, so I'll see you in just a second. Okay, now this is a very important part right here. See how it's getting gloopy? That's my word for the day, gloopy. Now it's fixing to start seizing, and what's going to happen is that eventually when I do this, it's going to make a big hole, and then you're going to know it's seized, for those of you who don't know what that looks like. So we're going to watch this for a few minutes here. If I think it's going to take a little bit longer. Actually, I have it on really low heat, and I'm doing that on purpose because of the size of the crock pot and the amount of soap we have in it. So, because usually I do about 5 pounds in this, but I just didn't have time today, and I'm going to have to, because it's already into the night, and one of my deals is I don't like soaping at 1 in the morning. I just don't like that. So, but you can see it's getting more gelatinous, which is good. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. If it had acted any differently, then you and I both would be learning a new experience right now. So, so it should just take a little bit more time. So I'll see y'all in just a few minutes. Probably another 5 minutes. Okay, now it's only been 5 minutes. See the hole? All I had to do was have my spoon in there. Watch this. Ta-da! It has seized. That's what seizing looks like. Just like that. See? Now, if I don't get in here and start manipulating it right now, it'll get so hard that I won't be able to move it, because you can already see now it's turning the whole crock pot. So what I'm going to do is now is the time to add my distilled water. So what I want to do is get it away from the sides so that the water can, go as many places as possible. So here's my water, and I'm going to eyeball this, just a little bit in there. Okay, so that's probably a cup of water right there, 8 ounces. So that's good. I mean, it'll evaporate, and it'll help keep the soap movable you know, where it's workable. Okay. Now I'm going to see how far that goes. I may have to change my spoon. This spoon is a little bit soft. It's one of those silicone spoons, so now, and I see water that I poured down in the bottom, so it's not really penetrating that underneath, but okay, now it is. And it's going back to the consistency that it should be. Now, I'm not wearing gloves right now, but I'm also not touching this. It's, you know, right now, if I touched it, it would probably not just be hot from heat, but hot from lye as well at this point. So, you know, if you're not sure about yourself, you know, in the process of where you're at with making soap, I would wear gloves. I just get so hot. We have a 2-story house and my soap room is in the top, and man, it gets hot up here. So when I can pull that off, I try to, because it gets unbearable sometimes up here. I'm going to add a little more water, and I may change my spoon. I don't want a spatula. Okay. Now, if I were to take, and sometimes I do this, if you want a really light bar that is hard and stays together, you could actually take a designated blender, hand mixer, not a blender, hand mixer, and run through this and whip air into it, and you will get a very light, fluffy bar that people like, and will float in the bathtub. But for this bar, I don't want it to float. I don't want to whip that much air into it. So I'm just going to keep working with it until I have it the consistency I want it to be. And it's almost there. And of course I have it on low. And as long as I see water standing within, like say if I do this and I see water standing down there, I'm not going to add any more water to it. When it starts to get where I can't move it, and it's like a rock, but you do not want it to get that far. Not like a rock, but very, very firm. You want to add water. So I like it the way it is. Right now it's at a mashed potato stage, and I'm okay with that. So I am going to get this back down in the crock pot, and I'll see you in a few minutes, and it's going to start cooking here, and I'm going to keep it on low. So this is going to be a long process on this one, because I'm going to turn it off and on. I'm going to leave it on for 10 minutes and turn it off for 10 minutes and see how that goes initially. And then if I can leave it on longer and leave it off a short period of time, we'll just have to see. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, this is what I want you to see. This is all about patience and time. And I poured just a little bit more water in there, and then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to let this sit. So I did. I put the lid on it, let it build up moisture, and now look at it, it is really good. I'm liking this a lot. So see, it was seized, now it's not, and we added distilled water to it, and that's okay. We got back to the consistency that we want. So we're good. So now what we have to do at this point is we have to make sure that it doesn't overflow. That's the big deal now. So, because we are at that point to where we're just ready to cook. So, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it on low, and when I begin to see it roll over on itself, if it's not overflowing, I'm going to leave it on. If I think it's going to overflow, I'm going to turn it off and then turn it back on in 10 minutes. Okay? So, I'm going to watch it here for a little while, and I'll show y'all in a few minutes what's going on with it. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so let's check on this. It's probably been about 15 minutes, and it's not doing too bad. It's not overflowing by any means. It is rolling on top of itself, and that's good. And it's looking like Vaseline, so that's good too. So our Hydrosol soap is doing well, and I'm going to stir it here just for a minute or two. And you know, you can see that by it seizing and then adding distilled water really doesn't hurt it a bit. I mean, that just looks like really nice soap. Some people, I've heard different opinions about it, but the water's going to evaporate. Whatever doesn't go into the soap, the water's going to evaporate anyway. So it's all good. I mean, it's part of the cooking process. So it looks really good, and I have it on low still. I have not turned it off yet because I don't feel like at this point, you know, it's overflowing. So I don't want to get all that off of there so I can keep all my soap and not have it on my spoon. And let that go into the mold. That way we're not wasting soap. Okay. Alright. So I'm going to let this sit a little longer, and I'll be back in just a little bit.